Today in the Growing Further podcast, I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Stenson. He's an Irishman based here in London and the founder of Charrlie, an agentic chief of staff tool for the corporate venture world. Jack talks in really great detail about how all the experiences of his career to date have led to this point where he is ready to give it a crack as a founder again. It's a super episode and I hope you enjoy it. Jack Stenson, very nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you as well, Dave.
You are an Irishman based in London. But you're from Galway originally, so tell me a bit about growing up in Galway. What was the crack over there?
Sure. So yes, from Galway City, went to university in Galway. I think Ireland is one of those exceptions sometimes where people go to university in the same city they're from. It becomes like another year of secondary school, but you're an adult, so it's amazing. I think actually kind of the roots of my whole career began really in what I chose to do in university. So I did economics and IT in my undergrad and then a master's in corporate strategy to get into consulting. But along the way, I ran the Film Society. I always wanted to get involved in making films. And on the day I had to choose my university career or my course, I had two options. One was film production. One was, the real life job as I saw it at the time, because I didn't think I could cut it and make a salary in the film.
Blue pill, red pill kind of scenario.
Really, yeah. But then I realized that when I was in university, I could go and I could make short films as part of this film society. Yeah. So I made one short film, and then that whole committee graduated and I took it over. And it kind of gave me the first taste of sort of project-based stuff and leading a team and how we could do certain things to get certain things. So for example, we set up a student cinema Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's free and non-alcoholic events. So the university were happy to throw a load of money at us. So then we got more money for film equipment. We were able to make more films. And we won Best Society of Ireland in my first year of running it. Won Best Individual of the University. It kind of gave a validation in that whole idea of going down the consulting track. So yeah, amazing city. Love where I'm from.
Well, my older brother, the youngest of six, so big family. He had such a good time in Galway that none of the rest of us that followed were allowed to go to college in Galway. So it's got a reputation as a party town, creative town. So yeah, you're in the thick of that in the film society. Yeah, no, it churns it out, whether it's theatre or street festivals. You have Macnas,
You have so many different theatre groups. So very small town and punches above its weight. I'm proud to go home whenever I do. Yeah.
Yeah, great place to visit. And so the adult track you followed study wise, kind of computer-based, economics and kind of IT stuff, yeah.
And then because the market was very competitive where I wanted to go, I joined a consulting firm doing strategy consulting to begin with. And to get into those grad programs, you need a master's degree or something more serious than just the arts degree by itself. So master's in corporate strategy just the MBA type, mini MBA type course, and ended up then joining Accenture Strategy Consulting. I was there for 2 years in Dublin, and then I spent a year and a half flying over and back every week between Dublin and London. Got the taste of London. Yeah. After a year and a half, I got a flat here, and I've been in London for 11 years now, except for 2 years in New York. A lot of it was in consulting. Yeah.
Cool. And to stick with the college experience, so that kind of project-based stuff, doing films and organising all that. I mean, dealing with kind of creative people, maybe reputation not being the most organised or whatever. Was that something you were good at? Did you take with you into your first kind of graduate job, that any bit of experience you got there? Or
I think one thing that I learned then that's really followed through, including one of the biggest things that I've done was in British Telecom's corporate ventures. I did a £5 million Series B investment in drones, air traffic control technology. And there was, I had no ability to tell people what to do when I really needed it. So you figure out a way of bringing people on side and getting them bought into things.
As in, you didn't have the authority.
The authority is the right word. Yeah, I didn't have the authority to force the 30-something lawyers, literally 33 lawyers and a barrister. Barrister was hired obviously for a bit of work, but I had no authority over them. But I really needed to get them to buy in and prioritize things to make the deal move forward. And I would have learned that beginning in the world of those project-based things and film society, because
inside the tent peeing out as opposed to outside the tent peeing in.
Exactly. But
use a gross analogy.
It'll do. When you have a group of people, especially in something like the Film Society, they have to be really bought in, creative people, but also they're not paid for it. They have their own university course. They could choose to do something else. So it's how do you get people really enthusiastic, a sense of ownership, a sense of legacy in some ways. I mean, we won a national award, we hosted a lot of things. And still to this day, I run like a non-profit in London. I chair a non-profit, in London, focused on supporting Irish startups and entrepreneurs in London. I'm on the global board. Digital Irish is the name of that. And again, it's that kind of same mindset of how do you really get people to buy in and feel like they have a sense of ownership of this. But yeah, creative ones are a little bit more scatty at showing up to things and deadlines.
Have you steered clear of the creative types professionally since?
Have I? I haven't thought about that.
Sorry, creative types. That's an awful phrase. Sounds like an accusation, but you know what I mean?
I'm drawn towards the arts actually more and more in the last few years. So on Wednesday last, a very good friend of mine was playing at the Irish Embassy's Christmas party, and he was playing the fiddle in the hallway, and I couldn't wait to see him. And
cool.
You know, and he's in a short film now soon, and I just find myself leaning more and more into supporting friends who are doing those projects more and more, just to shout about them and promote them. Yeah, so follow them from afar, but not actually professionally in it. You know, like a dad from the sidelines, just screaming at the kids to do better. You know,
sending the good vibes.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
Well, so I was just reading recently about the living wage that's provided for artists in Ireland now, which seems like a really good thing. So I think €1,500. I'm not sure is it basic living wage or something? That seems like a really good initiative to support the arts that I wasn't aware of. Yeah, a really good friend of mine is a novelist who has informed me a bit about the grants and process there, and I think it's getting better. I think a lot of that money seems to be going to updating IT systems, and there was a bit of a scandal there on them wasting, I don't know, the equivalent of what they could have given to 20 artists on a failed migration project. Much more than that, I think. I
don't know what it was. So the zigzag progress comes in zigzags, and there's great intention there for the arts, and every now and then you hear of a €250,000 bike shed type story, which is an Irish scandal. A scandal by Irish standards. Our scandals are pretty meek, thank God, by international
don't think anyone lost their job or their lives or anything, but
no. But progress comes in zigzags, and it's good to hear that the arts are getting some focus.
The digital art stuff is really interesting. We'll come to that, and then also the startup stuff. But I think having looked through your LinkedIn and gotten to know you pretty well over the last while, you have a kind of a good bit of experience in that kind of corporate innovation, corporate venture kind of world. So you had that role at BT. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because you really got stuck in with both feet in that. So tell people what that role is about and what large companies, how they approach this kind of world. Sure, yeah. But
before that, in my 9 years in consulting, most of it was working in helping large corporates build their own startups internally. And that's where I really cut my teeth in the world of how do you make things happen at a corporate. So they all talk about, we're going to work at the pace of a startup. You're really not. Like for a CTO.
The timelines for a large corporate and startup are completely different.
Yeah, but also there's people who are incentivized for risk not to happen. So like for the head of technology, the head of the lawyers and a large corporate, if nothing happened today, that's a good day. Yeah. While if nothing happened in a startup, God, are we going to be bankrupt by Thursday? So there's just varying different conflicts there. But I spent 9 years in Dublin, London, New York, back in London, helping large corporates or government build some various startups internally. Often it was a new product for customers. More often than I was more of an employee experience tool. I would have learned a lot there about how do you create things for people. And along my journey.
Yeah, so from that 9 years is quite a long time. So what works well, what doesn't work well? You talk about that tension between different factions in a large corporate. So is it to do with the makeup of the board, the agenda of the CEO, or how does kind of corporate innovation and venture and stuff, that entrepreneurial mindset get taken seriously in a large corporate? Yeah,
so I think it all comes down to the sponsorship of the leader. And I say leader because it could be the CEO, it could be the CTO. God help you if it's the CFO. And it depends where this innovation function sits or who is the ultimate sponsor of it. So you often get these life cycles where someone comes up with an idea or a team is born. And in the world of corporate venture, it's often a 3-year life cycle is how long these initiatives last. And to lean on corporate venture specifically because corporate innovation is so broad, but it's easier to be a bit more defined when talking about corporate venture. Year 1, we have some ideas, are great. We're going to explore what we could do, what we should do, and rule out what we definitely shouldn't do. And then hopefully we're going to kick the tires in a couple of different ideas. Year 2, okay, it's starting to become real. We have something hopefully coming to market. The idea would be that it would be revenue generating in year 2.
Okay.
Often that doesn't happen if they're building stuff internally, so venture build work, and which a lot of corporates want to do. They either want to do partnerships, joint ventures, joint go-to-markets, and that's what we would have done a lot of BT, and it's very common across corporate venture, where you build something yourself maybe, or you bundle in a startup's technology or a product in with what you sell. So we would have done health tech, drones, fintech, and electric vehicle charging infrastructure at BT. And for the health tech proposition, which is an easy one to explain, we would look at building our own solution of remote patient monitoring, for example. So taking connectivity and the core competencies and assets and strengths of BT, and then figuring out, well, how do we get something really innovative from the market and bundle it together? And the NHS was a big client of ours, but it takes startups 2 years to actually get to sell to them.
Right.
So we have the NHS already as a customer at BT. We're building this platform. We can bundle the startups in.
You can go in the side door to the NHS because you've already got that.
Yeah, a side door sounds like what a giant US shady tech company might do. But I'd say with great intentions and good outcomes.
Skip the queue, is that a better way to put it? No.
Yeah, that's it's only mildly frustrating for a Londoner probably, rather than nefarious and hauled in front of Parliament. But so a lot of year 2, you're looking at trying to bring in some money. Quite tough though sometimes, just because, as I mentioned, the heads of technology and legal divisions typically don't like anything to happen.
Yeah.
And I had 100 people who were working on that drones deal, for example, 30 lawyers and about 60, 70 other people who I was looking to attach sensors on top of these towers, which, since some of them were World War II communication assets originally, that had just been inherited by BT from when it stopped being the general post office company to becoming British Telecom. And they'd never put anything on them besides communications, mobile phone communications hardware since. And I was like, how about we put some drone stuff up there? And yeah, there was a lot of...
Was this mad Irish man telling us what to put?
Yeah, no, it wasn't my idea. I was brought in to try and help build up this thing. But it was a very smart lady called Meg Blight, who was the bold visionary who drove a lot of that and brought me in. But the challenge was I had 60, 70 people who had a good job, and they were most of them were very happy to try and figure out what could we do. Some of them though just saw the risk and also were a little bit worried about it, and some of them naturally were pushing back because that wasn't part of their day job and it was going to be extending things. So it's about how do you find the people you can who you can get to buy in. How do you get them to buy in, like I was saying with the Film Society?
Yeah. And
then who are the people as well who, as I put it, would throw a grenade on the table? So you need to meet these people before the meeting, in the before workshop, and identify who has a concern, valid or not, and then sort that out, make it part of the plan, or explain how it's not an issue, so that when the meeting happens, some people love to shut those things down in a boardroom. So
they don't feel steamrolled or caught on the hop as well, I guess.
And they feel like if some people just need to have their concerns addressed, or to feel heard. Yeah. So a lot of it in corporate venture, in the world of corporate innovation, is about the politics. And I don't mean politics, it can be used as a negative word. I mean more like bringing people on side, making sure that you have the easiest path to success.
Well, I guess everyone's concerned about not being spread too thin and resources, and they're managing their own budgets and P&Ls and everything.
Exactly.
So it's got to be conscious of that.
Yeah, and then that brings me to year 3 often in corporate venture, which is where it's kind of make or break, where often you get an executive team who in year 3, the costs are higher than they expected and the revenues are lower because the startup game has a 10% chance of success. And that will kind of translate into corporate venture. It's more successful depending on the different business models. Doing a joint partnership, maybe 50 to 70% success of revenue coming in. And then depending on if it's a financial investment, could be 10% chance of really meaty return on the fund. But year 3 is then when corporate venture becomes a stressful place sometimes and often year 3 is where a lot of the teams fold, or the products get folded into other divisions or something like that.
And I guess in large corporates you get a fair turnover of staff as well. Some new people might come in and going, what's all this about? And there you have to try upsell to them again.
Yeah, and then you have the whole, the talent expectation. So what you really probably want is people like myself, for example, I was a twice proud failed founder in 2013 in Dublin and then 2018 in New York. And just recently launched my own startup 2.5 months ago, becoming a full-time job for the first time.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But what you probably want in corporate venture, people who've tried that before and just really will go cross-eyed at the thought of trying to be a founder again, of the stress, or they now have a partner and kids maybe, and they need the more settled salary.
Yeah.
So this is their way of a halfway house of being in the world of innovation, feeling like they're in a bit of a startup ecosystem. And they are, but also have that safety net and security of salary.
The loneliness of the startup sole founder journey.
Yeah, so I'm on that now, but it's So the talent though in corporate venture is a difficult balancing act of people who can put up with the corporate governance, but also then have that appetite to be bold, do more. So when you get the right people together, as we did in the team I was in and BT, etc., you get some magic happening though.
Cool. So that's kind of corporate venture, corporate innovation. I'm not sure if that's an area of expertise for you as well, but my understanding of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have mature businesses that don't want to stay still. They want to reinvent themselves further down the cycle so they don't become obsolete or irrelevant and get replaced by newer entrants. So how close to the truth is that?
Yeah, I mean, they show, there's so much research now that shows that it's the smartest thing to do. There's a really interesting, I think it's a Harvard Business Review paper in 2012, which looked at the growth rates of large US companies who, after the 2008-2010 crash, and the ones that invested in innovation then were the ones who grew faster out of it and had more. I think another paper showed they were more likely to be alive in 2020. If you look at the top 100 companies in the world, we're always changing who they are, but the ones that invest in innovation along the way in a material way, you get some. There's some music speaker company, Bose, that invest loads in their marketing, but have actually chipping away their R&D over the years. So they'd be seen as top speakers, and I have a set, but they used to invest a lot more back in the day. And there's a global airline as well that is now run by accountants rather than engineers. An airplane manufacturing company that is now run by accountants rather than engineers because they're chasing the business model optimization rather than investing in the future.
Not skimping on safety, R&D.
Yeah, and doors falling off and all the rest of it, which is a bit of a...
I do have a flight in a few hours, so thank you for that.
What's the model of the plane? I'll tell you where the flaws are. Look out for the flange.
I'll get the ferry.
But yeah, so corporate innovation, the companies that invest along the way consistently, but again, knowing where their core competencies, strengths, and where they permission to play is crucial. So if you have a large company that's doing something completely out of their wheelhouse, it'll be responded as such by the market.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out where's the turf you're going to play.
Yeah.
And then make sure you have the right mandate. And then set your governance up to be successful as well. So what we did at BT, what at the beginning was, we're almost set up like a corporate innovation team who then began doing venture build work, building startups internally, investing in startups. What we should have done.
So the key to the corporate innovation was the venture side, let's say.
It was mostly venture build in terms of like they were building startups internally to become their own businesses. And then the corporate venture investment work, some of the work I would have done, for example, like we invested in that drones air traffic control technology as a foundation layer. And then we're going to have some hardware on top of that and some software services on top of that again, bundling some startups and other external innovation players into that mix as well. But we needed to make sure the foundation was there, air traffic control before you try and do anything else.
Yeah.
But that's not something, because of risk and time to develop that we could have waited for. So that's why we went to the market. You would have like a nice matrix of build versus buy versus invest, or partner. And, based on certain criteria, we would have assessed where in this value chain of the product should we do those things. And where you really want to build is where you should have first-party IP for your customers. So you want to have something that's unique to the market. But if you're going to do know your customer identification stuff for a financial services product, or which there's so many of those on the market, it's like building HubSpot again. If you're going to email your customers, you're just going to use HubSpot. So you need to figure out how far in your value chain do you want to go partner or buy. And so that's what a lot of corporates need to figure out. What they do is figure out what should they do, where do they permission to play, and then place your bets on building the right thing that's first-party IP for yourself to gain credibility in that market. And then you're setting up the governance and the structure internally is crucial, because So as I said, we were set up as a corporate innovation team. I wrote an investment paper that went to our chief digital officer for that investment. And anyone in the business could have done that. So we went through this typical standard governance process. We should have, and then I like renegotiated with our chief procurement officer some fast track processes for us to just redo how we did those things, working within the governance, but figuring out how do we do that in a faster way. Okay. So in year 2, we were renegotiating processes. You should do that from day 1. So set yourself up with the right governance. And God help you if it's a CFO who's your boss, because you won't be returning anything in the first 2 years. And in a meaty way. If you're doing investments, it could be 5 to 7 years before you see anything. So beyond material revaluations. So
and they need to be on board with that or aware of that. You don't your CFO getting shocked by this 2 years into it. Yeah, there's the guy who ran etc. is a guy called Tom Guy, and what he was exceptionally good at was bringing leadership on board and getting their understanding and their patience to give us the space to work. Selling internally the benefits of why you're doing this is huge. So the upward management there was an immense task that I learned a lot about. Yeah. So you've said you're a twice proudly failed founder. So talk us about those two experiences. What the focus was, what the driver to do it was initially, and product, and what happened. What you learned from it? Sure. So when I was in Dublin, I was about 2 years into my career in Accenture, and I realised that I was walking about 25 minutes to my client site from my apartment back in the day when I could walk to work. It was lovely. Rather than being under someone's armpit in the tube. Which can be comforting in winter, but horrible in summer. Sometimes, yeah. There's the balance of October and April are the good ones, you know? Yeah. And then besides that, it's hopefully air-conditioned tube lines coming soon. But in Dublin, 2 years in, walking to work every day. And Dublin's a funny one where it isn't like some global cities where you have defined business district, residential district, you get a bit of a mishmash. And I noticed that in this large bank who was a client of mine, they had 3,000 members of staff and about 700 parking spaces. So sometimes people used to drive in at 6:37 in the morning and sleep in the back of the car of the duvet for an hour and a half just because it was the only way to get a parking space. So, but meanwhile, there were loads of houses in the area. And people from those houses were driving somewhere else, and maybe they were sleeping in the back of the car as well, wherever they went. Yeah. So people going from A to B, B to A. And so I created a Airbnb for parking spaces. And people could list their driveway on the app and monetize that dead asset. Okay. Now, what I really learned from that one that I hoped didn't curse me in my second startup, and it did. And I really hope I don't think it's. I think it's I have the advantage. And I think this has given me the advantage. My third one is that the most crucial indicator and determinant of success, I think, in a startup is timing. So the first one, this parking space app, Park Shark was the name of it. It's a cool name, Park Shark. Very cool name. Yeah. Take that, TaskRabbit. But I was actually building an app and then advertising it to people who own driveways. So me as a graduate in a company, I did not own a house with a driveway. Yeah. In 2013, when this was going on, people in their 40s, 50s who were the ones with the driveways weren't necessarily as comfortable with everything in digital as they are now. Yeah. So they weren't doing digital banking. We didn't have that. Yeah. It was one of the things I was actually working on for the bank was creating the digital banking apps and experience. That failed because it was ahead of its time in terms of what the ultimate users would be comfortable for. The other thing I learned was in a market. If you were to have your time back, how would you have sold to them or got them up and running with that system? Was there another way apart from an app-based system? It needed to be an app. Probably, if I was going to do back then, again, maybe a desktop version rather than an app. But all my friends were doing apps, Dave, at the time. I just wanted to be cool, you know? Yeah. What I also learned, though, was that there's a guy I know called Oisin Hanrahan, who I met in New York 5 years later, who set up Handy. It began as everything, you need someone to do a job in the house. Yeah. They have it. And then they focused and they doubled down on cleaning people. So, and then he sold that business, I think, for $56 million to another company that he became CEO of. And then I think I sold that one in the last year as well. So he had a few things he could teach. Follow that guy, yeah. Follow that guy. What I learned from him in New York 5 years later was when you have a marketplace like this, where there's buyers and sellers on each side, you kind of need to oversupply on one and try not to burn them, but you might need to enable that marketplace to happen. So what we needed to have there was an oversupply of properties
and driveways. So that if anyone actually wanted to rent a space, whenever they went on, there was a supply. The last thing you wanted was, you looking up, you're in Drumcondra and you're the nearest parking spaces in Sandyford. So you see the thing just whirring saying looking for one in your area, but it never comes. Oh, yeah. I didn't even get that far that there was any AI. It was just showing a map. But so anyway, it made a little bit of money, paid for itself, but and then got me my next job, because I realized what I really wanted to do in consulting was build startups internally. Up until that point, I'd been doing strategy and more thinking rather than actually getting our hands dirty and building a digital prototype. So I joined another firm in London, which focused on that, and moved with them to New York and back. And that was more about rapid prototyping and, putting something in the eyes of a user, seeing how they react. Does their brow furrow? Do their eyes light up? What are their rich insights from having worked in this industry, let's say for 10, 20 years maybe? Okay. I got more involved in that rapid prototyping and building technologies. Had a team of people who were like behavioral psychologists, process designers, engineers, developers, and rich skill sets across the board that in my teams that I got to learn lots from as well. And the second startup then was a spin-off from that consulting firm.
Okay, so how many years after the first startup? 5, okay.
And I had an idea as well in.
And were you when the first one didn't work out? Were you very upset at the time, or were you kind of like, okay, just move on, do something else? Or
I think the worst thing.
Did you take it personally?
No, anyone who knows me will know I do two things when it comes to an idea like that. One is I'll always tell my friends publicly what I'm doing, because it commits me and holds my feet to the fire.
Yeah, paints into a corner.
Yeah, and I put myself in that corner to make sure that it motivates me to push myself. The second thing is I make a lot of my decisions based on asking myself, what if I'm looking back on this in 5 years, what would I think? And the last thing I ever want to have is regrets. So I'm very happy to, have zigzagged my way through progress. And I'm happy where I am. And I'm glad to say I don't look back with any career regrets. You'd like to have, the parking space empire.
Yeah.
I could have been the Elon Musk of parking spaces.
Could have been, yeah.
A little less.
You wouldn't be sitting here with me.
Oh, of course I would. But we'd be on a plane though. That'd be the difference. I'd be hosting you.
Exactly,
No.
We'd set up a little studio in a parking space somewhere.
That would have been cool. See, I didn't have the marketing brain as well. So you need to identify your gaps in your own skills. So unfortunately no parking space empire. But the second one, was in New York. It was a spin-off from the consulting firm I work for in London, New York, after Accenture, North Island. And originally this began in Q1 2018. There was really good innovations happening in voice analysis technologies. You might remember Google had a couple of Black Mirror sort of experiments where they were booking haircuts and pizzas and stuff. And it would call up a real person, make the call, look at your diary for when you wanted to get a haircut, for example, and then go, while it was loading and analyzing with the AI. And it was a bit uncanny valley, if you've heard the expression.
No. Please explain.
Uncanny valley is something in, like, if you remember some of the original CGI films where they tried to be photogenically real. Right. One of the most famous examples is a film called Final Fantasy. And it was a CGI film that tried to be human realistic. Okay. But people knew it wasn't. And that was worse than being, really real or 2D cartoon. So this was what Google were doing. They had this uncanny valley voice analysis experiment.
Uncanny valley.
Uncanny valley. Yeah, because it's just without a whiteboard, I won't be able to do it. But that's the term. And anyway, they were doing these experiments in voice analysis technology. Also, fake news was the zeitgeist issue of 2018, especially in New York, where I was. So my firm asked me. We had this festival of ideas, we called it, and we had this big marquee tent set up in Central Park in September 2018. And they asked me to try and figure out how do we demonstrate the art of the possible when it comes to something really exciting to draw people in, to show how we can create an interesting new product that solves their problems. So myself and a team created the No Fake News Fake Newsroom. So we had a news anchor desk with a microphone like this plunked on it, and people could come up and within our domain are like 10 areas of facts, just talk crap to it. Right. And on one screen behind me would be a live transcript. We're showing how we could do live transcription.
So speaking of microphone, this thing is analysing what's being said and fact checking. Yep.
Cool. So one screen behind me was showing a full transcript, and that was part of the power we were showing, is that, look, we can do accurate transcription. Yeah. So it was more for if you're a bank in a call center, if you were doing the wide variety of things corporates would want voice analysis for. Yeah. That's an example of that. And then on this screen, it was showing when it hit a fact that mismatched. You said something that was conflicting against a fact in the database. On this screen, it would then say, this is what you said, and this is the fact we have in the database. And the idea being that it was then showing how it could build contextual awareness of what you were saying and do fact checking, and a little bit of spiciness around the whole fake news thing.
And you talk about the fact database. So what was Trump's phrase? Alternative facts, was it? Yeah. Were they your proprietary facts, let's say, or where did you get those?
So that was a question I got asked by many news organizations in New York. What we said was that we gave them a list of, look, these are all the ones.
Jack's Facts, that would have been a good thing you could have.
Yeah. Premium subscription.
Yeah.
But no, it was kind of like factcheck.org and various things. There's a load of groups that are reviewed by journalism associations and the likes and accredited as being trustworthy. But yeah, no, that began, to keep that story short, on that startup. We had some very senior people from news organizations, including C-suite people there, who asked me, well, when can my journalists start using this thing? Yeah. And it was supposed to be a demonstration of the art of the possible, but then ended up becoming my second startup.
Right.
And
they got really excited about it, and you were like, this is just an idea kind of thing, yeah?
Yeah, we hadn't really thought about pushing it into being a startup because the firm hadn't done that, but ended up making it that. And then the Wall Street Journal did a feature on it and interviewed me, talking about in particular the fact-checking angle. And thus began kind of like, what you really need to do when you're in a startup is live in the problem for as long as you can.
Yeah.
So you need to meet as many people who can give you rich insights into their version of this problem, and stay in the problem for a good while, and don't just jump into solution mode. So I met 70 of the finest minds I could in the world of journalism in New York, Dublin, London, in between doing client work over the next few months. And some of them were CTO of Wall Street Journal, CEO of Al Jazeera, a guy called Ali Velshi, who has 2 shows in NBC News, heads of Comcast Ventures, corporate venture there.
So proper big hitters.
Yeah, Emmy-winning journalists, heads of technology from CNN. I was in the newsroom watching them film Anderson Cooper's news, meeting like a 20 Emmy award-winning director. Ooh. Like I was in all those places. And
sorry, you kind of developed this, the idea came from the firm you're working with at the time, yep. But then were you able to run with this yourself, or?
That was fun. So governance again, Dave, and sponsorship. There was 15 global partners in that firm, and 11 of them were like, "This is great because either look, I don't know what you're doing, but you have a Wall Street Journal interview. We're looking innovative, brilliant, or this could be a new revenue stream for us. We should explore. Yeah. We tell our clients that we should be innovative. We should do it ourselves." And then a few of them were kind of not very bought in, and that created challenges for me. Right. Unfortunately, one of them who was not bought in was the one who kind of had a final say on a few important things. So it started off, they offered me 5% equity,
right,
and they would keep 95%. And I said, "Do you talk to like a bus driver or a bin man or a lawyer or anyone, and ask, do you think that'll fly?" For the investors to come on board later. I got them to give me 70% in the end, and they told 30%.
Okay, well, their opening position was very far from the closing position. Yeah.
Yeah. So
good negotiation, well done.
Yeah, it was good negotiation, I thought, but not good enough, fortunately. Right. So the New York VCs who I was meeting, I had a few months in 2019 where I was allowed just focus on this, and not do any client consulting work. Which, there's a lot of countries around the world where to be an entrepreneur in New York, there's movies about that,
Yeah.
And certainly was very, one of the highlights of my career. Even though it didn't work, I would still look back with such pride.
Yeah.
Being so much in Irish culture about going over to New York and hustling your way around the city. And, I was meeting some very influential people who were very supportive and along the way. And I was very lucky to be able to pursue that. But yeah, the New York VCs and investors had very colorful ways of describing how screwed the cap table was. The cap table being the makeup of equity and ownership of the company.
Yeah.
And 30% was not good enough because, and I know from working in corporate venture and VC after.
As in you'd given away too much at the outset?
Well, they hadn't given away enough because it was very much up to them who was giving up stuff. But, typically in a round you lose 20% as a founder. Yeah. So if I had 70% and then I lost 20% in the very first round of investment, then I've lost control of my company.
Mm-hmm.
Before I have the vision solidified, before I have kind of customers and traction.
Yeah. Okay.
So
they would have preferred to see you coming saying, well, I own 90% of this and my employer owns 10%.
Yeah. And then also their dead weight in the cap table as well, how that would be described. So what is the commitment they're going to make for that 10%? And the company, though, the consulting firm legitimately viewed their stake was because they had enabled me to get to an early stage beta, an early stage prototype. And what I really learned was talking about like saying in the problem, which is something I always try and shake into startup founders when they have this great idea. I'm like, okay, channel your enthusiasm though into not creating, but to focusing on the problem, which is a tough thing to do when people get very excited about an idea. But what I did was when I met the other, the 70 finest minds I could in journalism, I tried to figure out, well, what would really add value to your experience? And it wasn't fact checking necessarily. It was listening to live spoken word and then alerting when breaking news was happening. So there's a product created by another Irish guy, actually, Mark Little, called Storyful. And that would listen to Twitter, secondhand subjective facts, and then alert journalists about breaking news stories. What I could do with this when we got past the beta was listening into, you have here in London, all the political speeches are broadcast on parliamentary websites, even in committee rooms. Okay. Texas Senate, State House, they'll do the same. Journalists are spread quite thin these days, so it's very hard for them to...
less resources in the newsroom.
Less resources. Yeah. Like there's some radio stations in America that have 1.5 people in the whole radio station because it's all automated now and all that. So again, meeting radio people, I learned about these pressures. So the idea was that this would be something listening to live spoken word across whether it was political speeches or CEOs earning announcements on YouTube. And then if you've written if you're Dave O'Mara at CNN.com, you went on a different career path, Dave. And
I can see it now.
You can see it now, yeah. You're a little notepad under your arm as you walk into a boardroom.
Cub reporter, yeah.
Little hat, fedora and all. Yeah. If you've written articles, say Dave at CNN.com, and we would word scrape all the articles you've written, word cloud it, understand what are the key areas of interest to you. Could be tennis, could be rocket science, and who are the people you've written about. And then understand whenever a story comes out that was hitting on any of those terms, or if someone you previously interviewed had said something that conflicted with a fact in the database, we can give you a high value notification. And what I learned from meeting the newsrooms was the stats on people who open the first article on their phone for a breaking news story is so much higher than even the second or third notification on your phone. So the value was going to be in helping break news stories rather than just fact checking.
Okay.
And again, it was kind of like timing.
So that speed of getting onto the story.
Yeah. And again, there was a few things that killed that startup. Timing, again, was the first one. It would have cost a hell of a lot of money to train the AI to be rich across a lot of different domains. Okay. Now, with the rise of ChatGPT, one of the guys who was going to be my head of technology for that one messaged me about 2 years ago. I was like, "Will we have another go?" And I couldn't open that box again. But so timing again was a great idea, but the
AI wasn't there.
The ability to build a beta in a cost-effective way using tools without getting millions and millions and millions of pounds or euros or dollars of investment wasn't there yet.
Okay.
So
that was the main death knell. So how long did that? You had your few months internally to try and get up and running, and was there much runway after that? Did you get to a yes, no pretty quickly?
It was about a year's project from this being an Art of the Possible conference demo effectively to then being me moving back to London at the end of a predefined stint.
Okay.
And the deal was if we get investment before I come back, we can run with it. But we couldn't get the investors on board because of the cap table.
And has anyone done anything similar since?
I've seen, I can't remember the name of them now. I've seen someone do something similar, which is great because journalism needs it. But so there's some things kicking around the edges. And if anyone's had the idea, I'll gladly give you a free workshop on all my learnings.
And Park Shark, has anyone successfully done something similar?
Yeah, there's actually some people building something really similar to me just after we launched. And they created a load of fake parking spaces on my app. Houses that didn't exist, which means I needed to make it even more reliable and trustworthy, which was my issue with the main customer group in the first place. So there's a few things kicking around there, I think.
You talked about the Irish scene in New York and the
Sure.
hustle and the drive. So let's talk a little bit about Digital Irish, which you kind of mentioned previously. So what is that, and what's your role in the whole thing?
Sure. So, in my journey trying to be a founder in New York, 2018, 2019, I used to go along to these Irish business community events. When I moved to, I never did networking events in London really, but in New York, time limit, only had 2 years there, just less than 2 years. So, I really want to make the most of it. And a friend of mine convinced
Make
me.
every day count.
Yeah. And burning the candle at every end. But a friend of mine convinced me to go to one group called, I tried going to loads of them. And then Digital Irish is the one I ended up going to the most. And then I ended up joining the global board, and I set it up in London. I'm still on the board globally, and I chair it in London now for the last 3.5 years. But Digital Irish is a non-profit funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs, the Irish government, and a few great sponsors, private sponsors, and no one's paid in the organisation for their role, but they just help fund the events. But it is a community of people who try and pay it forward to others. It shines a spotlight on Irish-led innovation abroad. So it started in New York in 2013. There's about one event per month there, a networking group, but typically you'll get some really seasoned, impressive people like that guy Oisin I mentioned, who had the handy.com cleaning app. So he spoke actually in my office in New York. I hosted one event there while I was there, when we had a who's who of the Irish business community and the Irish American business community in the room, about 120 people when there's 100 chairs. And
so it's good to have an over full room.
Yeah, and he gave a warts and all story about how he created, scaled, and sold his first business, and it was Chatham House rules: no one must tweet anything. You're in the room, you're learning. You're not in the room, you might hear about it in the pub later.
It's like going into a Berlin nightclub, they put a sticker over your camera on your phone.
Something like that, yeah. And those events were really impactful. And what I tried to do, because I was getting such great support when I was trying to be a founder, like I was thrown in some meetings with, like, there was the COO of one giant global news company who I was just told, oh, he'll meet you on Tuesday. Like from a guy who I didn't know his surname.
Yeah.
I was like, great, thanks. This is amazing.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. And obviously I know the guy's surname now, but the incredible kindness and generosity I was given when I was trying to be a founder, I'm just not someone who can take and not pay it back. So I used to do this thing where the monthly events in New York, as I said, I had like behavioral psychologists and process engineers, designers, developers, all the rest of it in my team for my consulting work. So sometimes on a Friday, these events be once a month. Sometimes on a Friday, I'd have some startups who I might have met at these events who'd flown over from Ireland, and they're here to meet some customers and investors. And I'd invite them up to one of our boardrooms, which overlooked the Empire State Building and all of downtown New York. And I'd tell my team, like, look, I'll buy a bag of sandwiches, and whoever wants to spend their lunch break doing some pro bono consulting and help advise this startup on what they should be doing, what they could do, come and join. Cool. And after about 2 or 3 events, the team at Digital Irish were like, who are you, and are you human trafficking our startups? And eventually in December of 2018, they asked me to join the board. So
it's human nature. People love being asked their advice or what their opinion and stuff, and people love to help, It's,
yeah. And now Digital Irish, it's thriving. It's in Sydney, Melbourne, Washington, DC, just launched in Amsterdam recently, and we're looking at maybe expanding further as well. We've been very, very, very careful in expanding, really. London was the first chapter that opened up outside New York. That was 6 years after New York. I tried to launch in 2019. With COVID, then we waited until spring 22. So 9 years later was really the first launch of an international one. And we're not somewhere that just tries to open chapters for the sake of it. Usually we only open them when someone in the committee moves country.
And is there an industry focus bias, or is it just general kind of support for startups? So
the last few events we've done in London, we had a fintech event in March. We actually had Enda Kenny, the ex-Taoiseach or Prime Minister of Ireland, speaking at one as well in April. And then we've done ones on the creative industry. We hosted an event at the Irish Embassy here, where we, for example, on that one, we had 31 investors, 28 founders, and 30 people in corporate innovation. Okay. So the investors, the startups, and then you have corporate entrepreneurs. It's not just about the founders, but it's corporate entrepreneurs and innovators in the mix there too. But they could also ultimately also become customers of those startups. Or they might get jobs in the startups, or the startups might get jobs in the corporates if the startups fail, which happens sometimes, as my stories let you know, obviously. But and the next few events we have in London are sports tech. I have some really amazing people who have offered to host, globally recognized sports people. In the world of fashion, we have one on fashion hopefully as well, where very senior people from Irish and London fashion scene will hopefully be involved. There's the head of a bank as well that wants to do an event here. So like, a really good variety of industries. And we find that each event has a new focus, usually industry-wise, because people would typically only, like when I was in London, I never went to networking events. But if someone said, this is your industry, and there's Irish innovators talking about their lived experiences and the lessons they've learned along the way, I'd be interested to go into that. So typically we find that a third of the attendees of, like, say, 100 people at the event, a third of them, this might be their first event, and the other 2/3 are raving about it because they've been to loads before. But it's a really warm community where we're always encouraging people to figure out their own way of paying it forward. We sent out a survey in the summer asking people in our community in London. There's 1,100 people who come to the event since we started it 3.5 years ago. We do one event a quarter. We've done 7 this year though. We sent out a survey asking, how can you pay it forward? We had such great positivity, and every event we go to, or where we host, there's founders getting jobs, founders getting investors or customers, people getting jobs, some people getting romantic relationships as well, which is over here. But because we're not,
that's a full service you provide there, yeah.
It's the full life cycle.
That's the better phrase, exactly, yeah.
It's a thriving.
Waiting for your first digital Irish baby to come down the track at some stage.
Yeah, we haven't got the marriage yet. But, not that you need it, but we'll hopefully keep thriving, keep growing. Yeah.
And if anyone looking at this wants to find out more, where can they find out the information?
Digitalirish.com is the website, or the best thing to do is follow us on LinkedIn, and you will see all the notifications of events there being promoted on the page. And we also host Irish Tech Week in New York. So I flew over to host that in October, and it's a 3-day affair. It's our 3rd year. We just did this year.
Not around St. Patrick's Day?
No. 6 months after.
6 months after,
just, where everyone has the energy
to go focused,
again. That is a very, very impactful day where a lot of the people, like Oisin, who I mentioned, who ran Handy.com, he spoke at that event, giving some really rich insights again. So the best VCs, investors, recruiters in New York that are trying to give the best advice possible to some founders who come over from Ireland. One founder got a deal within 2 hours of the conference starting with a customer. So highly impactful, the most impactful network. If you're looking to try and if you're an Irish person looking to do business in New York, this is the community part of, which is why I've invested my own personal time into it.
Cool, very cool. And you talked about VC there. So your most recent role prior to setting up your latest startup was with Plug and Play, yeah.
Yep.
So maybe talk a little bit about that role and what that entailed, and what you kind of learned in that whole period.
Sure. So Plug and Play, for people who don't know, is one of the world's most active VCs. Depending on the year, it's the most active in terms of the number of checks written. Some groups like Techstars will get more stakes because they run accelerator programs. Plug and Play run accelerator programs, but don't take stakes in the startups that go through those programs. The startups take part in them for free.
Okay.
But in terms of
no strings attached, just
no, because generally speaking, it's a government, university, or corporate who's paid for the accelerator program. So they run accelerator programs for the European Space Agency, NATO, Visa, the likes, the biggest, Mercedes-Benz, you name it. There's so many. I'm gone blank.
The types of brands you see sponsoring the Olympics and the World Cup. So the big hitters.
Yeah, so Plug and Play Global VC, and I joined having been a client of theirs in British Telecom, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. I was working with them for 2.5 years, and then they asked me to join as head of Ireland to expand Plug and Play into Ireland. And I'm really happy to say we made a few investments. I closed the last one actually on my very last day there.
So working to the last minute?
Yeah, again, this is an Irish founder, and I'd actually flown him over to London for something that day. So I was very happy that we could have closed that one. But when I say I was a client of Plug and Plays, so when I was in British Telecom Corporate Ventures, I didn't really know much about drones or air traffic control technology, but I was leading our investment in it.
Yeah.
So Plug and Play has a consulting arm which will support corporates in scouting and doing due diligence and analysing industries and startups. Okay. And trying to find who are the companies that could go on the long list, short list, and then help you whittle it down, and then help you work out how to, using expertise, work out who you should do the deal with, and then giving advice on how to structure that deal. Okay. So I had 2.5 years working with them, and there were some great support. The team in Vienna, for example, would be aviation investors and experts. So Nick and his amazing team in Vienna would have supported me on my drones deal, and they would have supported us across the board and everything in beauty. And yeah, so I spent just over a year and a half at Plug and Play, and then what I noticed though was, again, timing is the main determinant of success in startups. And what I started noticing early in the summer was a lot of corporates were using, who are the core revenue of, the investments that Plug and Play would make. A lot of the core revenue coming from the consulting work, but the corporates we were working with were often using AI kind of in a hodgepodge way. Right. So they're using ChatGPT for this and that, and often breaking corporate policy by dropping pitch decks and the likes into it. Yeah. And they were using all these other random tools here and there, and none of it in kind of like a one-stop dashboard, or none of it kind of held in one place. Yeah. So, and then also the last company I actually invested in was an agentic food tech company. Talio is the name of them, Talio. And I was looking at agentic technologies last year, and then it kind of hit me that, okay, well, if the technology trends are moving more towards agentic, where it's an AI that just figures out how to do something rather than a deterministic do ABC, then, and also the corporate clients are starting to use AI in a hodgepodge way. And this is now the time where I can either automate my own job or someone else will. Yeah. So I did that and started working on that a few months ago and made it my full-time job in mid to late September. And yeah, so Charrlie is the name of that company. So Charrlie,
well, first of all, congratulations, you're going again.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So Charrlie, 2 R's in the middle, just because he or she is bionic, or maybe just because I had to get the URL somewhere. Right. But again, corporate clients.
Where did the name come from? Just like the name, or is there something behind it?
Third startup, Alpha Beta Charrlie.
Makes a lot of sense.
Charrlie is also male or female. So for the women who are going to work with him or her, they can choose to have, Charrlie is their chief of staff who is helping them scout, do due diligence, analyze, and handle all the manual tasks of bringing in pitch decks, finding the questions, then answering the questions, setting up meetings with startups, suggesting next best action. We have 5 of 50 questions answered. Do you want me to email the startup the other 5 questions? We haven't talked to that startup in 2 weeks. Yeah. Will we set up a meeting? Next best actions, because the world of corporate venture, where this is primarily aimed, will be VC as well. Okay. And corporate innovation. So corporate venture and innovation is where it's aimed now. There's a lot of paperwork.
So sorry, let's just focus on that. So someone working in large corporate, you're the head of venture or innovation, or head of venture and innovation, let's say, and your job is to know what's going on, have your finger on the pulse, map the market, let's say. This Charrlie will help you kind of do that in a structured manner using AI.
Yeah. So
and same for VC. If your job is to know, I need 10,000 startups in my file of facts, Charrlie will help you put structure in that and add to it.
There's 2 ways it starts. One is I'm looking for something in, say, the world of drones, air traffic control technology. Don't really know what I'm looking for, but I'm going to put that into a search, and then it'll go and try and figure out, are there subcategories within this that you might want to think about? Are you looking for hardware solutions, software solutions? Or, that's a pretty already confined or narrowed market. But if you put in something like energy storage technologies, it'll ask you, okay, are you looking for hydrogen? Are you looking for sodium-based stuff, gravity-based stuff, and start getting into certain things. And then you can go and tick the subcategories that interest you. Are you looking for early stage, late stage, B2B, B2C? So we can really help you workshop where you're looking to begin with. And then it goes scout around the internet, trying to find these companies, and gives you intelligent blurbs written as a venture capital analyst in Plug and Play, for example, would write it. And then when you want to get into it, it'll then start doing more enhanced research into that company and ask you, do you want to set up a meeting? And it'll go around trying to find the email address of that startup. So CCing you on the invite, not sending anything without you checking and probably editing the draft to make it your own. And then try and really begin a conversation with that startup, but handling a lot of the manual work. So it won't join the call on some creepy AI call things do. But because it sets up the call, it gets the transcript. So then it's able to analyze the whole transcript. Okay. And then pose some questions based on what's there, answer some questions based on what we already have. If you have, then the other path, so you mentioned, if you have a list of 200 startups, for example, you can just go straight into due diligence mode, drop that spreadsheet or PDF, whatever it is, into the dashboard, and it'll create this long list of them. And then sequentially, it'll go through each one. And based on kind of a scoring matrix that you can edit yourself, it'll rank them based on, say, team, product, financial viability. There's like 6 different columns at the moment. And then you can go again, just set up meetings, try and set up some calls, get transcripts, get pitch decks, Excel models, dump them all in, and has everything in one place. And then, again, the reason I've started this off in the world of corporate venture is because there's a lot of like time in spreadsheets, and there's a lot of what is the next best action, and people kind of analysis paralysis. But then also, like, I would have had to create some documents to bring people along the journey. So you can just push a button and it'll generate an executive summary or an investment memo. And there's 12 different templates currently in the platform where you can click a button and then it gives the first draft, and you can edit it in the document and click export and it pumps it out.
So hypothetically, if you were running, let's say, a competition for startups in your business, how might Charrlie be of help and assistance to this very august and credible awards program? Well,
it sounds like there is an actual awards here, Dave. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Perhaps the Growing Further Awards, the eponymous Growing Further Awards. So you're going to partner with us for the 2026 awards. So
I'm delighted to first sort of client partner that we're publicly talking about. So delighted that it's Green Man.
World exclusive,
like the rest of our podcast together. But breaking all the hot stuff. But so the idea being here that we can go and look for startups in certain domains. So say it's energy, and then encourage founders to come and apply to be part of the Growing Further Awards. Typically what I found, again, having done this job manually and been in corporate venture before as well, where we did a little bit of this, was you typically find in these awards programs that about 50% of companies are encouraged to apply, because you're like, hey, look, we think that this is a good match for you. We want to get to know you. This is our way of getting to know you. If you could apply to be part of this process. So half of them will be, scouting around the internet, and then any others that apply through the Growing Further Awards website will end up in the dashboard for you to see them appear on the list, and then based on the scoring matrix, which we have, will be ranked accordingly. And of course, I think, as with every startup though, in the early days, there's a lot of manual hand holding. So it's not like we're just giving you a login and wishing you all the best.
Off you go,
Myself and Charrlie be with you every step of the way there.
Good stuff. Well, I mean, this will be the 3rd year we've done the awards, and like most things, don't have a clue what we're doing when we set up initially, but a lot of picking up the phone, word of mouth, recommendation, and just scouring the internet, looking for startups and going to events and stuff. So any help Charrlie can give to, I suppose, put a bit of structure on that. And as you say, like he struck a chord when he said, paralysis by analysis, looking at a spreadsheet, like, okay, well, where do I go from here now? So any kind of tool that can help prompt that or cut out that kind of that dead time when you're trying to figure out what your next move is will be brilliant. So looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Yeah, and there's some really exciting new features. And we're focused on the core of scouting, due diligence, and just doing that end to end. Some really exciting new things I'll have, which are, your shortlist in the news. So again, it'll create a long list for you. You then decide who you want to take forward, shortlist, and then actually meet and maybe, bring forward even further than that. But one thing that we'll have in Q1 by the time the awards have happened is shortlist in the news. So it'll be listening out using there's a number of different AI models and APIs that being used by this technology, and one of them will be listening for news stories about those companies. So any companies that you have on your shortlist, it'll ping up news articles. So again, it's trying to bring this rich information to you onto a single dashboard, enabling you to take the next best action with whatever startups or industry you're focused on.
Well, best luck with everything. It's a big leap again to go from kind of one of the world's most active VC to being by yourself again. Much smaller Christmas party, for example. With Charrlie. But how are you feeling about what do you say, about 2 or 3 months in now at this stage? And
coming up on 3 months and by around Christmas time.
You had that itch to go again. Did you always think you'd set up another business?
I hadn't scratched the itch. So I twice before tried to do a company, and I live vicariously through the success of so many founders that come through the digital Irish community in particular, or ones that I meet in my day job. That I'm always, living vicariously is the best way of putting it. But I think a lot of people who live vicariously are the ones who really want to do something themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy supporting others. I get a lot of joy around supporting others and seeing them win, but it's something that I knew I'd end up doing at some point to make it my day job. And again, what I learned from the first two was timing is the key determinant of success in startups.
Which you only know in hindsight, I guess, if
Exactly.
whether or not your timing is good.
Yeah, and I hope this is foresight for someone. But the timing, I could see the market was changing. The technology was going to enable it. If I tried to do this 2 years before, it would have been about £100,000 per client to train an AI model.
Oh, really?
So it would the capex investment up front would have been colossal.
Yeah.
But the technology there was now on my side as well to enable me to build this in a cost-effective way and enable experiments to happen without me needing to take VC money. So, yeah.
So you can remain your own boss.
For now, yeah. Yeah, get a co-founder in early New Year for the technical stuff, but yeah.
And do you have an idea in your head what success looks like for Charrlie and timelines, or are you just kind of taking it week by week?
I have a lot of friends in corporate venture in London who are keen to do trials, and I've just been waiting on making it a bit of a richer product before I bring it out to them. And I think I do have an idea of what I'd like in terms of traction, but I'm not going to say that here because rarely, even though I did say an hour ago that I like to hold my feet to the fire.
Yeah.
There are certain things like predictions.
Not your entire body, just the feet.
Just the feet, yeah. Not my hands, my face, and my bank account. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that if I have a rich network here of people in corporate venture, I know a load of VCs who are interested in backing this. And as I said, the market, the technology are all there. So the ingredients are there. So if not this, with my experience of having done this as my job as well for the last 4 years, if not this, and if this isn't the idea, Dave, I might have to be like a fava bean farmer or something.
Might be the idea, but with the timing, it might be right, but it mightn't be right. But you'll find out. I mean, at least you're not going to die wondering. You're going to leave it all in the pitch and all other such cliches.
Yeah, no regrets is what I want to live by. So that's what I'm pursuing.
Yeah. Jackson, just before we wrap up, is there like people hopefully watching this might be either in a startup or thinking about doing it, or maybe have never thought about it, but do you have any kind of closing comment or final thought to leave them with that might be give them a steer? Sure.
If I was going to give one tip, I think it would be about how you can try and make stuff real. And we're like myself in how I've taken advantage of trends in technology that's enabled me to go much further and faster with Charrlie. I recently gave a guest lecture to some students last week actually, in some medical students who were tasked with coming up with a startup idea. And I went as the investor basically to, in mock pitches to assess the ideas and then give them some feedback afterwards. And the one tip I had for them all was, showing is much better than telling, and to bring people on board and get them on the journey. It's a lot better if you can demonstrate something. So there's a really cool tool called Lovable, which you might have heard of.
Yeah.
So Lovable, lovable.dev, D-E-V, is the website. And I would have made like some very early stage prototypes with Charrlie on that one, for example. And what you can do is you can really bring something to life and then start testing it with your target customers or get advisors' inputs on it better. And what I really suggest people do is if you have an idea, go to ChatGPT and just tell it it is a chief technology officer, and tell it to put that hat on, and then tell it this is your idea and you want to workshop it and go over and back. And if you can, if you don't have some really strange accent and ChatGPT can understand you clearly, it's getting good, but sometimes it's poor. Do it out loud, talk, and say you want to spar and you want to workshop something with ChatGPT. And it goes, if you have a very clear idea of what you want your idea to be, it'll still top it up by 10, 20% maybe. But the ultimate goal is to try and ask ChatGPT to create a solution design document. And then you can just throw that into Lovable and be like, build this for me.
Okay.
And it was amazing where I've had a friend who actually cloned Wikipedia over a weekend. I don't know why. They're quite a good organization, pretty altruistic. I don't know why you do that. Yeah. But anyway, a friend who did that using Lovable.
Because he could.
Because he could, yeah. And some of these students anyway, last week, on the Monday I met them, and on the Friday the judges were all blown away because some of them have built these platforms for, one product was about advising mothers on when to breastfeed. Another one was about helping train doctors internationally when they move abroad, to advise them on how regulations are different and how certain things are different, and to help them get up to speed in new markets and new countries. And they built these V1 websites. So, if you're someone who has any entrepreneurial spirit in you, there is literally no time like the present, and that has never been truer in any industry than it is being an entrepreneur today.
That's a great example of the power of the tools that are available now that can kind of fast track an idea.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's solid advice, Jack. Thank you very much for that, and best luck with everything, all things Charrlie related.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. If you like that, you can see lots more episodes from the Growing Further podcast wherever you do get your podcasts. And to find out more information about the Growing Further Awards, please check out www.growingfurther.io.